Okay, hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Brad Gottschall. I am the Lower Paxton Township Manager. In typical fashion, I'm going to give a brief summary of this evening's agenda, particularly for the benefit of those who may be watching at home on television. So this evening is a work session of the Board of Supervisors, and we have a fairly straightforward agenda, only a number of items on that agenda. But getting right into it, the board will hear a presentation of updates and more from the Historical Commission. After this, the board will hear a presentation of Resolution 22, a resolution to be numbered, which amends and reaffirms a mailbox replacement policy for the township. And then following that, the board will hear a presentation and have a discussion on community garden initiatives. Finally, then, the board will hear any last announcements before making a motion to adjourn. With all that said, members of the board are seated and prepared to conduct business. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Lower Paxton Township Board of Supervisors meeting. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order, and Mr. Judd will be doing the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. The board did meet in executive session before this meeting, and we will not be meeting in executive session after the meeting. At this time, do I have any public comment? All I ask is if you are coming up to public comment that it is nothing that is on the agenda. If it is something that's on the agenda at that time, then you will be able to come to the podium and speak. So with that said, do I have any public comment? Yes, sure, come up. We'll need your name and address, please. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name is Brittany Rodas, and my address is 1424 Alexandra Lane, Harrisburg, PA 17110. As I said, my name is Brittany Rodas. I am the owner of a single-family residence located in Blue Ridge Village. I purchased my home in 2020, and we're one of the first contracts signed in the neighborhood. After months of searching, my husband and I decided on Blue Ridge Village for the sole reason that the premium lot that we had chosen would back up to open space and for the promise of a community with amenities for my family, such as walking paths, parks, and more. I love my home, I love my community, and I love living in Lower Paxton. However, what we have received has been broken promises, poorly maintained facilities, and material misrepresentation as to the community that we were buying into. I'm here today on behalf of my children who attend overcrowded schools and ride overcrowded buses, who can't walk down the street without fear of being ran over on tiny, overcongested roads. My neighbors who, like us, were falsely promised a community with open space, walking paths, and amenities, and the over 500 residents of Lower Paxton Township that have already signed a petition in opposition to any further development of residential housing in the former Blue Ridge Golf Course. While we as a community could go on for hours about what we consider deceitful practices by our developer and former HOA, today I would like to raise the concerns of my neighbors that specifically relate to any additional residential development of our community. As you may recall, Triple Crown came to Lower Paxton Township with a plan to develop the former Blue Ridge Golf Course into a multi-purpose community featuring single residential homes, 55-plus townhomes, commercial development, and open green space. That plan was approved in 3 separate phases, with each phase dedicating 32 acres of green space to the township for open space and for recreational development. It was brought to our attention in December 2023 that Triple Crown was requesting a significant portion of that land back in order to develop additional apartment buildings in place of the green space. We are here today in collective opposition to that proposal. The ramifications of allowing further development on this green space are profound and far-reaching. In discussing this proposed development with our community, members raised concerns regarding traffic congestion and unsafe roadways, overcrowding of local schools, and the environmental impact. There is not a single benefit to the community to develop additional apartment buildings on this land. Additional apartments would only exacerbate the existing problems, jeopardizing the safety of residents and worsening the traffic congestions on Linglestown Road. The potential overcrowding of our local schools would be an additional consequence. Our educators are already stretched thin, tasked with managing overcrowded classrooms and transportation. Further development would only strain our education system and likely lead to increased taxes for our community. The environmental impact cannot be overstated. These 32 acres of green space serve as a vital habitat for wildlife, playing a crucial role in sustaining our local ecosystem. Destruction of this green space would have irreversible consequences. It was the township's own impact study that identified the land's unsuitability for development, citing drainage issues, significant wetlands, and more. I can speak for my community when I say that many of us as homeowners are already dealing with these problems in the community. Lastly, we emphasize the importance of accountability. There are already several questions being explored regarding the legality of decisions made by our developer in our community. As a major developer in our area, Triple Crown must be held to the highest standards of integrity with their commitment to the community honored without compromise. Any deviation from these promises would be a material misrepresentation to the homeowners and a complete disregard for the well-being of our local community. In light of these concerns, we ask the Lower Paxton Township Supervisors to stand firm in opposition to any alterations to the approved plan, ensuring that all 32 acres are dedicated to the township for open space and recreational purposes. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, as of now, I don't think anything has come to the Planning Commission and nothing has come to the Board of Supervisors. Mr. Gutschall?
Yes, that is correct, ma'am.
Okay, we had met previously with the Parks and Recreation Planning Board and were informed that it would be coming, if it had not been already, with a recommendation to do nothing, because right now they can't make the decision since the land is not under Lower Paxton's control. So we are speaking preemptively, expecting that that's going to come to the board soon. We unfortunately found out that Triple Crown had came and given a proposal suggesting that our community, which our neighbors are with us here today, were in support of that proposal, and we are absolutely under no circumstances in support of that. We would rather absolutely nothing happen to that land than additional apartments be developed in our backyards. So we're just here preemptively.
Okay. Well, thank you
Wait,
so much.
what was
for
that?
coming.
The last thing you said, that Triple Crown said they told us that the community is.
Yeah, so it was suggested to us in a previous meeting that they had actually came to the Parks and Rec Planning Board. I'm sorry if I'm not getting that name correct.
Planning, we're talking Planning Commission, right?
No, I think they're talking Parks and Recreation Board.
Okay,
Is
just
that-
so we understand.
Yeah.
And anything that happens would go to the Planning Commission.
Yeah, this concept is several months away from any sort of.
Well, and I
formal
just wanted to make clear that I didn't want anyone to think that they came to us representing that there was community support or something like that. Just so you know, and as the chair said, and is being re-emphasized here, is several steps removed, and we haven't looked, considered anything. But I know what you said, preemptive, and I do appreciate that. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Mr. Gaccio.
Go ahead, Brad.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, any further discussion of this concept at any level beyond the Parks Board is several months away. Right now, I've reassigned the discussion to be held at another monthly Parks and Rec Board, and so they're going to continue to reevaluate that. At this time, the Parks and Rec Board is merely looking at this concept proposal from a perspective of just the park and what the park could be given any number of scenarios, including an expansion of apartments or current subdivision as is today. So they're taking a look at that, and then once they would take a look at it and make a recommendation either to the affirmative or not, then it would go to Planning Commission, and then finally then to the board for final adoption. But yeah, it would be several months away yet. But
Okay, do you think that a decision is going to be made on this proposal, whatever it ends up being, within the next year? Or are we talking several years down the road? It was suggested to us that the planning process could be significantly long.
Just candidly, I'm not sure I could speak to that right now. Given I'm not sure as far as what the developer has already ready to roll. You know, they may have this plan buttoned up to the degree that they can simply submit it. I just don't know from their end. I'd imagine it's pretty far along from their perspective if they're discussing it kind of in a public setting. I think they're ready to roll, but I really couldn't say formally on that. But our subdivision process is routinely pretty quick in terms of having staff review, and our planning commission meets regularly, and so it does, once something is brought before a board, it does roll pretty quickly from that perspective. So within a year would be certainly doable, just from a Lower Paxton subdivision perspective. But again, I'm not sure where the developer is at on the plan at this point.
Okay, thank you. I'll just close quickly with saying then, even though this process is still several months out from reaching your desks, we will be involved in advocating against this the entire step of the way. Under no circumstances as a community in Blue Ridge or our surrounding areas do we support any additional residential development in Blue Ridge. We're facing a number of problems, which some I listed in here, some I've sent in a letter to you guys to review. So there would be, unless there was some miraculous change, we stand in opposition to anything and will continue to advocate, but we appreciate you hearing our concerns today.
Okay, I thank you for coming and bringing it to our attention. What I would do is every month we have the Planning Commission, we have the Parks and Rec, and the Supervisors. So what I would do is I would check the agenda, and then that would tell you when it's going to be at Parks and Rec, when it's going to be, at the Planning Commission. You'll see if it's on those agendas.
Okay, great.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anybody else under public comment?
I'd be curious to find out, you mentioned about broken promises. Who made all these broken promises?
Yeah, we'll be happy to speak to that. So Triple Crown was the developer of our neighborhood when we all purchased our homes there. We spoke with the salesperson from Ryan Homes who entered a contract with Triple Crown for the development of that land. We were promised that the land adjacent to many of our houses would be dedicated to the community, 32 acres, no further development. It was promised to us when we signed our contracts. It was mentioned to us. There's easements on my deed for conservation easements behind my house, so I'd be curious to know how it works getting around those. So the promises we're referring to in the single-family residences are the promises that were made at the time of sale, which we do consider to be material misrepresentation if they proceed forward with breaking that promise. Many of us have documented, the 40-plus articles advertising the neighborhood, the website advertising the neighborhood, and the plans submitted to Lower Paxton dedicating that land as green space, should they pursue forward with this. In terms of the villas, I can't speak personally to that, just concerns that have been relayed to me regarding public and private road access. So the roads in the villas were promised at the time of purchase to be public roads. They were appraised by the state to be public roads. Triple Crown actually has them dedicated as private roads, and they will not be turned over to Lower Paxton at this time. So there's concerns there with road maintenance, with the infrastructure under the roads, and the significant costs that are falling back on the homeowners because of that misrepresentation. So those are some of the promises. I mean, I'm not here to speak as to all the ailments within our community, but there are several other concerns that we as residents have regarding the maintenance of the facilities that we've already been given, pools and parks that we do not have access to, roads that aren't properly paved or plowed, sidewalks that are not finished, all things that were submitted with the plans for approval when this initial zoning was done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if I may, Ms. Rhodes, with the roads, did the realtor tell you that they were going to be township roads, or do you actually have it in writing that they were going to be or they were not going to be?
Again, I live in a single-family residence. My road is a public road, so I'm speaking to the best of my knowledge for 5+ villas. The deeds say that they are public roads. The state appraisal says that they are public roads. At the time of purchase, they were said to be public roads. It was not until after residents started purchasing, this was phase 2 or 3 of the development, that they learned from the HOA that they are in fact private roads because they do not meet, from what I understand, it's the width of the road. I know that there have been variances granted throughout Lower Paxton to work around that. I know there's some concerns with funding when that's done, But there's some serious discrepancies between what the state has appraised these roads as and the property that sits on the side of the roads compared to what the developer has actually turned over to the residents.
Okay. Tim, I hate to put you on the spot, but the roads that she's saying that are going to be private, can you just allude on that a little bit, please?
Yeah, I have the map pulled up here and was just taking a look. So those roads were never, as far as my understanding, they were never offered for dedication. They were never, during the planning process, there was never an offering for dedication. So when we have HRG review, perform construction inspection on the roads, it's a different level of inspection that's done for a private road versus a public road. So going into it, my understanding is we knew what was public and what was private.
Okay. And that would have been on the land development plan, right, Amanda? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, my name is Tom Foley. I live in the Villas. I'm also on the HOA board. I live on Caroline Lane. So we're talking about Caroline Lane and Tiber Lane. Both of them, when we moved in, we were told by Ryan specifically that these were public roads. The appraisal that came back also indicated public roads, but when we were told later on, these are now declared private roads, and we were responsible for the snow plowing, the road itself, and we actually met with Mr. Gottschalk a little while ago last year. What we see now, because of the snow events that we've had the last 4 or 5 weeks, it's an astronomical cost to handle this ourselves as the HOA. So that's one of the reasons why we're not going to give up this fight to potentially, and I think that's probably going to be Triple Crown having to change all their original applications, everything that they've done. But it really is a burden on the homeowners that we were not aware of, and that's what I think Brittany was referring to when we were sold the bill of goods type. So that's really what it is as far as the villas is concerned. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Could we just, I know you said Caroline Lane, could
Sure.
you just give Ms. Smith your address,
Of
please?
course, 2210 Caroline Lane, Tom Foley, Foley. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Is there anybody else under public comment? Yes?
Good evening. My name is Paul Keppel, and I'd like to speak in addition to what Brittany and Tom just said. Just a few things I think should be brought up to you all.
Can we have your address, please?
2300 Caroline. When my wife and I moved into Lower Paxton Township, we were excited. In our opinion, Lower Paxton has by far the best police, the best fire, the best everything, and we were excited. We became quickly disenchanted because of the whole public and private road thing. Several gentlemen and myself, we met with Mr. Gutshaw and Amanda to say, hey, help us out here. We're retired folks. Most of us are retired. And basically we were told in that meeting, under no certain terms will the township take it over because you all would lose the some county money. And we said, well, send us the bill for that if that's what it takes, the fuel tax. And that was ignored. In regards to Triple Crown, it was just, I want to say the end of November, maybe even the beginning of December. The DeSanto brothers met with the 55 plus community residents. It's at that meeting that they told us their intentions. They said, our proposal with Lower Paxton Township in order to be allowed to build was we would give this certain amount of acres. And they proudly boasted this. They said, we're going to ask for a certain percentage of that back because we want to put apartment complexes up there. And you guys don't have to worry about it because Lower Paxton, they're not going to put a park in there, but we will. We'll gladly pay for everything. We'll put a pavilion up, a pickleball court, so on and so forth. When we moved in, like I said, I specifically asked, Ryan Holmes, the salesperson, because they said, oh, no more snow shoveling, no more plowing, no more anything. And that's one of the reasons I moved up there. Okay, I'm getting to be older and my back hurts. But I specifically said, who is going to take care of the streets? And they said Lower Paxton Township. And this was told to multiple residents. I mean, I would think it kind of borders on fraud in a sense. But as far as the green space behind Brittany's house, we just want it to remain green. We don't want more apartments up there. Right now, on Alexandria, and I don't remember some of the names of the streets, there's cars flying 45 to 60 miles an hour up and down these streets all hours of the day and night. And we're trying to walk. We're trying to enjoy the community. Part of the promises that were made were you're going to have this beautiful green space with beautiful walking trails, beautiful this and beautiful that. Our walking trails, you can't walk on them or you're going to break your ankle. They're old golf cart paths that look like they haven't been repaired in, decades. I think it's important that you all know that. We're a pretty large community. We've been let down by Triple Crown, and they're throwing this stuff in our face. And we told them at the meeting, we don't want this. But we think you all want to know. We're a good group of people, a good group of voters, and we're begging you. We're begging you. Please don't consider this. If they want to build there, please don't consider this.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Okay. Any board members have any questions? Okay. The next one, Mr. Doyle. There you are. Okay. We got the presentation of some updates and more from the Historical Commission. And thank you to the Historical Commission for coming here tonight. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. As you said, my name's David Doyle, one of the members of the commission, and I have this whole back row is other commissioners, and we're only missing two. And then I also want to really thank Amanda for all of her hard work as being our liaison. The Historical Commission, as you know, is a volunteer group and appointed by the board, which again, we're very thankful for that opportunity. And we began in 2018. And during that time, we've had 38 public presentations. We've recorded 25 of those presentations. And we placed a sign honoring the 3 soldiers that were killed in a plane crash near Lingelstown back in 1951. And the sign is located near Heroes Grove. And I want to thank the American Legion 272 because they're the ones that paid for that sign and helped us be able to do that. And if you remember, back during that presentation, we partnered with R.J. Harris, and we had a very nice presentation out at the, not only remembering the 3 that died, and they were the only active soldiers that died in our township. And but also we gave a lot of honors to all of our veterans. Currently, we're researching and then seeking permission to place a sign at the New Site Cemetery. The New Site Cemetery is pretty much of a consolidated cemetery at this point. Since the 1700s, it has gotten probably quite moved around, but there are a number of stones over there, and we're glad to say that it's the property of now the township. And the important part about that is that those individuals were from the American Revolution. And there's so much history there because I don't know how many people understand the difference between the Paxton Boys and the Paxton Rangers. The Paxton Boys were a little bit of a rough militia, and history could paint a really bad picture on them. But the interesting part is they became heroes during the American Revolution, and a number of them are buried over in that plot. So we're really trying to do some good research and have another sign, kind of like what we put out at near Heroes Grove for those vets. Denise and Christy, who are two of our members, they're working on documenting properties prior to around the 1940s, and this information will hopefully be used to create a dynamic GIS program where anyone can click on a location on a map and they'd be able to access the information that they've been researching. And for those that aren't familiar with GIS, it's a geographical information system, and it's real nice because you can just take a map and just click on it, and that area then would populate. Alex from the township has been amazing helping us with that, and he also helped us create a GIS map of all the monuments that are in the township. So again, somebody can go to that site, click on it, and it'll populate, show you the monument that's there, and give a little bit of history on it. Our March program is going to be just a short presentation, and we're going to start showing a few of our archives. This presentation is designed to inform the residents and others about the showcases that are out in the lobby. We're going to finish the third showcase, I think, next week. And we also want to introduce the show and tell process to the public, because in August we're hoping to do a presentation where residents or anybody that has artifacts from the township can bring them in, tell family stories, show the archive. Possibly they might not know what it is. We might be able to help them with that research. But we're really going to try to get this as an ongoing presentation at least once or twice a year from here on out, and we hope that that's well received. We also have a couple interesting presentations coming up. The first one that I'm going to mention is still kind of a 50-50 chance that it will, or well, we're hoping it's an 80-20% chance that it's going to be successful. We've come across a movie that was made in the 1969-1970 school year by the faculty of the Lower Paxton Junior High, and it's basically a silent movie where they had a train robbery, and I think the title was "The Gold Is Where You'll Find It," and we're hoping that if that comes through, it's right now in the process of being digitized, and if that comes through and it's clear, we're thinking of asking permission from the church that owns Lower Paxton, the old Lower Paxton Junior High School, and doing like a partnership with them and showing it as a movie night in their auditorium. And you should come see it, because I have a guest spot in there as a 12-year-old kid. The other presentation that we just got confirmed on today is from Dave Beiser. Most of you are probably familiar with Dave Beiser. He himself has become John Harris. I mean, he knows more about John Harris than any of us. And he's written a book about John Harris. And I contacted him today and reached out. So we're hoping at the May meeting we can have him do a presentation and have his book available. And I really think hearing it right from him will be amazing. We also currently just filed, it just went in the end of last month, a micro grant for $1,000. And that was through the Museum Commission, the Pennsylvania Museum Commission. And what we want to use that money for is our archives that we have. We want to buy shelving and other storage boxes that are acid-free, that we can preserve our archives and get more and more organized with those archives. We're staying busy. We're enjoying our researching, and we love uncovering history of this area. And again, thank you.
Yeah, and I did go to Lower Paxton Junior High. I know you were East Junior.
Yes, I was.
Yeah, but thank you, Dave, for leading. Would you like to introduce your group, and if they could stand up? We have residents here, residents on TV.
Sure will. Come
See
on.
who's on the Historic Commission.
Come on up. So this is my co-chair, or my vice chair, Donnie Goss. We have Jay Purdy, Christy Kessler, Denise Daimler, Pam Valencia, and Bill Minsker. And the two that are not here tonight are Sarah Green and Bob Thomas. And they both gave me good excuses, especially Bob. His wife made reservations to go out to dinner for Valentine's Day.
Before Valentine's Day.
That's right.
Great. Well, again, thank you all for volunteering your time. And if anybody hasn't been to their programs are absolutely wonderful.
Can I add my thank you as well? It's establishing the commission was really one of, I think, the proudest moments for me as a board member, history and celebrating it and remembering it. And I know it's a lot of work, and I'm just so very grateful. This is going to be a resource that will outlive us all, the work that you're doing, and just from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And the day of the flyover was, wow, breathtaking.
That was fantastic.
Absolutely breathtaking, yeah. Any other board members like to say anything?
No, just thank you all
Yeah,
very much.
okay. All right,
Good
thanks
seeing
a
you.
lot. We
Take
appreciate
care.
it.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next on the agenda, we have the first presentation of Resolution 24, amending and reaffirming a mailbox replacement policy. Mr. Brad or Mr. Nolt, who's going to talk?
I'll just kick it off here and let the director do all the rest of the work. But yes, before the board this evening is a draft of an amendment to this resolution, which establishes the township's policy regarding the replacement of mailboxes that are, I was going to say routinely, but that's a bit strong of a word. Unfortunately, sometimes during snow removal, which we had today a little bit of, mailboxes are unfortunately dispatched of through snow being pushed around, especially in weather like today when we had very, very heavy, wet snow. Unfortunately, any bit of speed that a plow, is able to pick up when it's doing its operations can really launch snow quite a distance. And so our policy on the replacement of mailboxes that have been taken out through the flight of snow has not been updated in a number of years. And the director here has recently taken a look at that policy and is coming forward with some recommendations to that. And as such, this resolution would allow the board to make those formal changes. And at that, I will turn it over to Director Nolt.
You're not going to tell them about your experience
You
today?
know, that's on my list. I'm going to tell you. So my husband's out plowing today, and he comes in and he says, hurry, 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 come in, come in. Mr. Gutschall was behind the wheel plowing my street.
You'll probably want a raise now.
I don't know about that.
Did a great
Luckily, I didn't
job.
take out any mailboxes, so I wanted to really take part in this discussion tonight, but,
You stole my thunder there, Brad. I had it on my list for the end.
Yeah, just
Okay, Mr. Nolt.
just to add on a little bit, obviously nobody on our staff is intentionally hitting mailboxes, and it's not I wouldn't call it a real widespread problem. Over the last 4 years, we've had 25 mailboxes that we had to replace. And when you take a look, put into perspective of the 21,000 households in the township, you're really looking at a really small, like 0.1% of total households. So it's not something that happens too frequently, but we do have some improvements that we think we can make to the program, the policy, to help us out. And we have a prop here tonight that I'll show you. Just real quickly before I show you that, it's basically we have to go curb to curb with our winter maintenance. And when we have mailboxes that are hanging out into the street or encroaching, past what USPS recommends or requires, then they're in danger of being hit. So I'm going to go off mic here and just show you this model. Our staff put this together just to show the different components. You have the street here. If you have a curve, this white part is the concrete curve. And then obviously the mailbox, the grass. So the measurement that we're most concerned about is between the face of this curve and the front of the mailbox. USPS has a requirement for 6 to 8 inches for that distance. They also have a height requirement of 41 to 45 inches between the street and the bottom of the mailbox.
So just to repeat, in case someone didn't hear, the mailbox, the front of it where you put the mail in, should be, would you say 6 to 8 inches
Yeah, 6 to 8.
back from the curb, because the plow truck could clip it if it's closer. And I can tell you, I didn't know that, so I'm going to have to go home and measure.
Well, I didn't know it either till the other day when Mr. Gutschall had told me, and I've lived in this township all my life, never knew. So I think it's something we need to educate our residents on, whether it's email, Facebook, newsletter. And I think as new developments are being built also, I think they need to be educated, the developers or the real estate people, to tell, the residents that because I had no clue to the other day that had to happen.
Correct.
And
me if I'm wrong,
obviously-
but they do, and I mean, because when they issue you, this is going to be your address, right? They tell you, because I've done this before, and they tell you, and I'm also one of your 1%, by the way. You did hit my mailbox a long time ago. It was probably Brad. No, he was still a baby, but they do tell you exactly. They even tell you what side of your driveway, they want it to be on. There are very specific.
Our
rules
other
for that.
house, we were there 40 years, and we moved in there in 1979, and never told us.
Nobody told you what
Nobody
to do.
told us. But back in 1979, the mailboxes were only on one side of the street, because back then, even USPS was only making one, but never told us. And that's why when this came up, I was like, wow, we were never told.
Well, how do you find out? I mean, that's a good point.
Yeah,
though.
how
If
do you
live there,
find
how do you
out?
find out?
Yeah.
Because it's like we're not the ones determining that determination, are we? I thought it was USPS that makes the determination of where they want your mailbox to be.
I'm not sure how that
Is that
procedure works.
Well, what you're quoting is Postal Service.
Yeah. What we're trying to do is to have a requirement that when the township pays $100 for the reimbursement,
Right.
as part of that, we go out and make sure that the new mailbox is put in per the USPS
Right,
requirements.
and that's, so that we're just talking about reimbursement, and, because we don't speak for the Postal Service, and I don't want people to hear this and run out and start tearing out their mailboxes, because then I won't get my mail. This is just us. It's not a legal requirement. We're just saying, for you to qualify for reimbursement, your setback has to be according to Postal Service standards. They decide your mail, it'll still be picked up, just so we don't complicate it. But if plow happens to nip it, because it was for any reason, we're going to stick to these parameters.
Yeah.
Well, you are, if I'm right, you are entitled to the reimbursement for $100. But when that new mailbox goes in, then we want you to go with the regulations that he's
That's
asking.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
we
it's
will-
not
yeah.
saying the existing mailbox had to be installed per USPS requirements. It's the new replacement
The new one,
mailbox.
But they will get their $100, for us hitting the mailbox. But I think what we're talking about here tonight is, was it 2016 or 2017 that we raised it? Because I know when I came on the board 11 years ago, it was $50.
This is 2017.
2017, okay. So I think what we're talking about tonight is Is $100 enough, or do we need to up that amount when we do, nick a mailbox?
And we did go through a survey, the 25, we had got answers from 25 municipalities throughout the county. And Table 2 in the memo goes through the reimbursement amounts currently provided. And we are still among one of the highest.
And there was another, I think, interesting proposal of note, and that is that right now, it's technically, the plow has to strike it. And there are instances where it's simply pushing the snow at a high rate of speed, and the snow hits the plow, or hits the mailbox and can break it. And so technically, under current wording, that would not qualify. And not to point to that specific scenario I just did, but there is a proposed change that would add some leniency or add some discretion on the part of the Public Works Director to a case by case and I assume maybe that's to consider some of those things where if maybe the plow was going a little too fast.
To provide us with a little bit more flexibility with this policy versus just cut and dry.
If we didn't hit the mailbox, nothing. So now this gives you some discretion.
Right.
Okay.
But Tim, I think that we did, if we were plowing and the snow did knock it over, didn't we replace the mailboxes before?
Typically, no.
No?
No.
Okay.
And that comes back really.
I'm thinking a long time ago we did.
That comes back to education as well. I mean, I've seen other municipalities where, they'll do an educational video, put it out on social media, go out, grab the mailbox. If it rocks, then it's not ready for winter. So I think there is a lot of education that we can do as part of this as well.
Okay. Do I have any questions from the board? So what you're proposing is that we keep it at 100?
Yeah, I think it's in line with others in the county. Still among one of the highest.
Just my opinion, I think it's a little low. You go to Home Depot and what it costs to purchase the mailbox plus the stand, plus the cement to put it in. And then also, if you can't do it yourself, then you have to hire somebody. So just my opinion. I know one of the ones that we had received from the last snow, it was $300 to replace everything. The labor alone, she lives by herself. The labor alone was $160, to replace it. So,
and that one is shown. That's attachment 2. That's the mailbox that we're talking about there.
Right, that was by the, and again, I'm sure a lot of residents don't know that there are regulations on how high and how far back it's supposed to be. I mean, did you board members know that? I mean,
No.
Paul said you did. Yeah, because you did. Yeah, yeah.
I just use common sense. You don't want it hanging over into the street.
Right.
It's going to get hit.
But if you look at that, if you take that mailbox, the opening, and you come straight down, it's right there at the curb. So it's not really hanging.
Well,
it's
hanging
about
out.
2. It's about 2 inches.
yeah, it's a couple inches.
It should be. There should be a little more there.
Well, what's the purpose of the reimbursement? Should we be, if it's a reimbursement, should we not account for actual entire reimbursement? And then there are different kinds of mailboxes. I assume the real thick, expensive ones are probably less prone to damage. I guess just by physics, a lot of them will be the lower end. I don't want to assume, but how do we even arrive at $100? And what's the purpose of the reimbursement? Should it be to make people whole?
I think it used to be 50 or 75.
It was 50,
and it was
11 years ago.
just an arbitrary amount.
To put money to help pay for it. And then, like you said, 2017, we upped it to 100. So we're talking 6 years later with inflation.
Do you have any opinion, I mean, would you object to us making it larger? Is it come out of,
I mean,
it's come out of your
It
budget?
comes out of our budget.
Okay.
So it does impact,
All right.
what we can do. But I mean, it is a kind of a minor amount in
Yeah.
the scheme of things.
I appreciate your frugalness.
So how many, I know you said 25 over the past 4 years. Of the past 3 snows that we've had, how many have we reported?
There were 8 total, and there's probably 7 of those were one storm. The one on January 6th. So it really comes into play, the type of snow that we get.
Right, because today was heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the rain. I know we're not voting, we're just discussing, but I just think it should be raised, and I think it should, my opinion, I think it should go to $150. That's just my opinion with the rest of the board.
I don't know, I'm not ready to pick a number, but the whole concept of what it's for is what I think we should contemplate. Is it to make people whole? Is it just to help?
I've seen
To
some
me, it's to make it-
mailboxes that probably cost as much as my first house.
Well,
You know.
yeah, that's why I said it's not to make it whole, it's to help. Because we damaged it, but it's to help to put money towards purchasing a new one, is my understanding of the program.
We could consider something like $100, and then we pay 50% of anything over and above that, or something of that nature.
Well, the only problem with that is, what if you have the ones that are, okay? I mean,
If we
those, they
damaged
could
it-
cost $1,000
Well, if
Or
we
more,
damaged it,
yeah.
we damaged
or
it.
more, yeah. Could this be a case by case, Tim? No? Too hard to do?
It'll make it more
Difficult.
difficult to implement.
Okay.
I don't think residents are going to run out and upgrade their mailbox because they think they're going to get reimbursed more if it's damaged.
Right. That's why I just think we should give like a stipend, towards them purchasing it. Pamela?
I just wanted to know, out of the 8 mailboxes that were damaged, do you have the cost of replacement for each of those 8?
No, that's not.
Because they're not required to submit that for
No,
reimbursement.
they don't have to submit any receipts of what it actually cost.
To get the $100?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They just have to fill out the form requesting the $100.
Yeah. I can tell you, we know the one in the picture was I think it was 300.
Yeah, 300.
And that wasn't really all that fancy.
Right.
No. But like I said, the labor in that one, because we were sent the email, the labor in that one was 160.
I guess, so if we have 8 so far, since you want to note the impact on your budget, so if it was 50, 8 times, if it was, help me out here.
So 800, and then if we do another
so-
50,
So 400.
400, yeah. Tim, is that a line item, a separate line item in your budget, or is that in with something else?
It's just basically a miscellaneous line item.
And we've been pretty easy on that the past couple of years because we haven't had much snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was 1 mailbox hit in 2023, 5 the year prior.
11 in 2021, 1,100. So we would add,
Could we have like 3 approved contractors that would put in a bid and say, we'll replace a mailbox at so much per hour?
I don't know if you'd want to get in. Because what if we only allow so much and they want something bigger that's going to take 2 or 3 more hours?
Well, that's when we could pay a percentage.
That's the nice part about the flat stipend.
Right.
Because then you kind of walk away from it. If they're not happy with the work that was done, it's not between you and, it's not between the township
Right.
and property owner.
I mean, we could be just talking about $500-600 here. $50 difference for 10 or 11 mailboxes.
Right.
So I don't think it'll break the bank.
I was just looking, at inflation because it's been since 2017. And seeing that we started out at $50 and we're up to $100, and that $50 was probably for 30 years. Yeah. Paul, did you want to say something?
150 is probably fair. I mean, I just looked it up. You're right. Like, I mean, just that is like $110. So then with labor, so.
At least it
Most
would
people
help.
probably
It
aren't
would
gonna
help
put it in.
towards something.
Yeah, and they're probably not going to put it in themselves, so.
Mr. Manager, is a reason we shouldn't do this? You're also a very frugal guy.
Thank you. No, I mean, I think a flat rate would probably be easiest for staff. I mean, it gets.
I
Well,
agree.
absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
That's
Yeah.
why I'm erring on the side of
Yeah.
a bigger account. I don't want to have to do too much paperwork.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now, if you want to increase it, I think that's totally reasonable.
I think $50 is, to start out for now, because it's been 7 years or 6 years since we've done it. Okay, we in agreement there?
I think so.
All right, okay, you can put that on for a business meeting?
Yes, we'll
Okay.
do that.
You know what, I'm sorry, is there any public comment on the mailbox? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next discussion is the presentation and discussion on community garden initiatives. This was brought to our attention, and I thought we would have a workshop meeting where everybody could express what they're looking for. So I think what we're going to do first, is there anybody here in the public that's here for the community gardens? Okay, great. Okay, so I think what we're going to do, if you could come up to the podium with your name and the address, I'd like to hear from you, the board would. What are you looking for? What kind of community gardens? Okay?
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Evelyn Lopatic, and this is Andrew.
My name is Andrew. I'm on Gale Drive, and you're on?
Kingston.
Okay, can we have your address? And Andrew, we'd need your last name for the minutes for Mrs. Smith.
My name is Andrew Siliker. It's 2182 Gale Drive, 17110.
And my address is 511 Kingston Road, Harrisburg, PA 17112.
Okay. Excuse me, Mr. Gutschall, did you put Alexis Campisi on the phone? She's, yes, yeah. Alexi Campisi is a councilwoman in Millersburg, and they do have community gardens, and we've been in touch with her. So she would like to be on the call in case there are some questions that maybe, because we haven't done this since back in the 80s, that we can't answer, that maybe she could answer for us.
Yeah,
Sure.
that makes sense.
Can we start maybe a little bit? Can we
Yeah,
go over the
okay.
presentation?
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I guess I was just going to
Okay,
say.
you'll have to come up to the mic. There you go.
Close here, okay. So I've done community gardens for about 5 years. I managed the Ames Community Gardens in Camp Hill. There was 130 plots there. It closed down, unfortunately, because the plant's closing. But it was a pretty big success. I noticed that it kind of hit a lot of community needs. People grew food. We had a shed there, and there was a refrigerator so gardeners could leave their surplus, and that was donated to a local church that was then distributed. So it sort of hit, I guess it sort of hit a community service, but it also was a place for people to network and get to know each other. And I noticed there's not really something like that exactly here. I also noticed there's a lot of vacant land in the township that seems like it could be useful for that purpose. We created a Facebook page a couple weeks ago just to see if anybody else was interested, and within an hour, there's probably 100 people in the township.
That's why we're here tonight.
Okay, so people are, so there's definitely support for it. Now, I also have belonged to several community gardens, and so what I'm getting at is, I'm going to get a little higher.
Yeah, you can move that.
I got to bend down. They range, the level of involvement for the township can range from just providing the land and maybe a fence around it to water, a shed, somebody that locks the fence. I also belong, because I got this during the pandemic and all the gardens were closed, I have one in Mechanicsburg. So I've seen how they run theirs, and theirs is, it's at the Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Park. It's maybe half an acre that's fenced in. Everybody who gets a plot, it's $50 for non-residents, $35 for residents. So you want to charge, I found that that's a pretty good rate because it encourages people to use it, but it's not so much that people can't afford it. But everybody gets a 20 by 20 plot. There's several hose hookups there. It's fenced in, and all the gardeners get the combo to the fence, so it's locked, but the gardeners can access it during daylight hours, and it's open from, I think, March 15th to November 15th, something like that. But they don't really do anything else. It's kind of on you to maintain your plot. You can put up a fence around your individual plot if you want to. But again, it's at Mechanicsburg as well. I've gotten to know a lot of people there. It's a way for people to network, to share things, to share experiences. So it sort of touches a lot of different bases with that. It's my understanding, I heard that too on the Facebook page, that there was gardens here maybe in the 80s.
Yeah, back in the 80s, we had 3 of them. There was one at Lingle Park, which is behind Southside, Coons Park, of course, in Linglestown, and then Brightville Park. Unfortunately, they were closed because people were not maintaining their plots. So, yeah.
Now, I ran the Camp Hill Gardens, and we had sort of a policy where we had a written sort of basically like a contract that everybody signs. You fill out like a waiver, and you agree to maintain your plot. And what would happen is we'd have volunteers go around and check the plots maybe every month. And if people weren't maintaining it, they'd get a warning, another warning, and after 2 weeks, they'd lose their plot. I also belong to the Dauphin County Community Gardens, and I think when those plots go up every year, there's probably an hour that they're open, and then they're all taken. So a couple lessons from that. One, a lot of people want garden spaces. But the second lesson is that at Dauphin County, you can get up to 8 plots. So people just kind of gobble them up. Whereas like Mechanicsburg, it's 1 plot per household,
Right.
which seems to work a lot better. And also the Mechanicsburg, they don't plow, which seems to work pretty well also. I mean, I'm happy to give you details on what's.
But they don't till.
They don't till,
They
right.
don't till, okay.
So you can kind of invest in the soil. It's easier to keep. Like for Dauphin County, the whole thing is plowed. It's treated kind of like a farm, so it all kind of intermixes. So you can't really invest much in your plot, which doesn't seem to work as well for people. So people they kind of check out at the end of the season because they don't want to maintain with all the weeds because it just kind of, they know that whatever they put in, it's just going to go back to square one the next year. But I can, of course, fill you in all the details you want with the basics. But it just strikes me, and I'll let Evelyn speak too, because she's got some strong feelings too. But there seems to be a really strong demand for a garden. They've become very popular lately. This is a big township, and I think it'd be a great way to meet your neighbors, and maybe we could have several plots. I don't know.
Okay, great.
Yeah, when I was a student at the Med Center, there's one right there across from the hangar, the helicopter hangar.
Right.
A lot of us used to go there. You know, they were raised beds, but yeah. So I mean, and it worked there. Yeah.
We're open to raised beds or maybe fenced in beds. Either one would work. And we also really want water, like a water source on the property, because it is a lot of work, and it kind of like, I don't know if it will push people away necessarily if they have to bring their own water, but I know that it will be more convenient for everybody to do so. But also there is a piece of land, I think it was 30 acres over in Blue Mountain. Blue Ridge. It's like
Starbucks.
Yeah, it's right by Starbucks.
Okay, that's the Blue Ridge Village?
Yeah.
That's where
new,
the park, that's what they
yeah.
were talking here.
Yeah.
That was early on. That was the conversation, Miss Rodas. That's what she was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, there is like 30 acres over there, and we were wondering if maybe we could use a section of that because it was dedicated to the community to be used, and no one's doing anything with it. So, yeah.
I tell you what, let's just to keep things going here, maybe we'll set that aside for now because for me especially, this is brand new. So before we start targeting specific things, just so we can start from the general and work our way down to that.
Yeah, because we have to look at the zoning. Also, about the community gardens with the zoning. We'll let you speak, and then we'll have questions.
Because I have
that
some
we can
basic
ask.
questions,
Yeah,
so I don't want you to waste time getting too far into the weeds,
Yeah.
pardon the pun, but you've raised enough things to where I think we have a general idea.
Yeah, I was going to say that it really, the way that I've sort of seen it work in other models is you can kind of expand. You can start small, and if it's popular, you can kind of build onto it. You can just for the first year, just basically provide the land. If people really want to do it, they show dedication to it. You can then kind of add on to it as it becomes more of an institution. But it can always start just kind of small and then go from there.
Okay. So I'm going to ask some questions because I'm not on that Facebook page, so I wanted to know what they're looking for. So one of my questions is, what kind of community gardens? Rented plots, or would they be, you grow the vegetables and you give them back to the community, you give them to NutriPack through Central Dauphin School District, or are you looking at all organic gardens? What was the consensus for the people that were interested?
We haven't run that by them yet. We're still in the preliminary, are you
Okay.
interested? And they are. My suggestion would be that it would be kind of, I guess, a little bit of both. You would have, people could keep what they wanted, but then the surplus could be donated. That seems to work the best. People are usually pretty generous that way, but then they also kind of invest more too, because they can kind of add their own little touches to it. But that's what we did for Camp Hill, and it was I think it was very successful.
Okay. And as far as the plot size, we did meet with Liz from Dauphin County yesterday, and Bonnie Kent from up north, and then, of course, Alexis, and then Lori from Penn State, where the grants could come from. So my question is, the plot size. I'm hearing a little bit of everything, 4 by 6, 6 by 8, 30 by 30, 20 by 20. And you've been involved in, you said 5 different of them, 5 different gardens. So what is your recommendation?
I think if they're not raised beds, 20 by 20 is pretty good. Dauphin County's 30 by 30, and they tend to go into disrepair. Mechanicsburg uses a 20 by 20, which people can seem to stay on top of. At Ames, they came in 3 sizes, 6 by 9, 9 by 12, and then 16 by 12. And those were raised beds. They're a little bit more involved, but my vote is, I should say, my suggestion would be that if it's not a raised bed, 20 by 20 is usually pretty good, a pretty good standard. And you could even make 2 sizes, maybe a kid's size that's 10 by 20, and then 20 by, or for people who are less capable, and then maybe 20 by 20 is the standard size.
And then, you had said about residents and non-residents. So that would be another conversation that we would have to have, whether it's just for residents or we invite others in. Hours of operations at the gardens that you've been involved with?
They've all been dawn to dusk.
Okay. And the one up north is dawn to dusk too. Okay. And of course, there would be rules, there'd be an orientation, with everything. And then one of them, and I'm not too sure who it was yesterday, but if they're not going to clean up the gardens at the end of the year, they would be charged the $75. Do you have anything in any of your 5 gardens that in the beginning, if you don't want to clean up at the end of the year, then you put the $75 up now so that we can take care of that?
All my gardens have just been, it's forfeited. Now, Dauphin County, you don't have to clean up because they just do
Right,
it all.
yeah.
But all the others, you'd forfeit your plot. You'd have like a week in the fall to clean up, and you'd get warned, and if you didn't, it'd just go to somebody else. The plots were so popular, they'd get grabbed up pretty quickly, so the next gardener would just clean it and take it over.
Okay. All right. Board members, do you have any comments? Questions? I do. Go ahead. Brian.
So what's the minimum space you need, acreage?
Well, I think it depends on the number of residents who are interested, but I think an acre, 20 by 20 is 400 square feet. You're going to want to allot walkways. So let's just say that we had 40 plots. So what's that, 16,000 square feet, which is about a third of an acre. So you'd want to allot a little bit more. So I would think I would err on the side of 1 acre. That would allow for probably 50 plots plus room to expand, a shed if you wanted, walkways.
So if we were to just try it as a pilot, we would want ideally something about an acre.
I think an acre would be sufficient
Okay.
with room to, that would also give you a little bit of room to expand.
Right. Yeah, with room to expand, like I said, there's a lot of people that are asking us questions, like when is this starting? What's
Yeah.
the process? Like, what do
Yeah.
we, can we help?
Tell them that we just began.
We just began, yeah.
So,
I don't think
Bills
you'll
are
be
in
planting a
motion.
seed on March 15th.
so about 1 acre, and again, this is all, I of course heard of them. I'm more familiar with them in urban areas, where people really don't have any alternative. So to hear that there would be interest, and we'll, if we do go a pilot program, we would find out, that, because a lot of people, I don't know how many, but Lower Paxton it's suburban. There's some areas that are very small, but a lot of them, even if you have a little quarter acre like me, you have enough room for a garden as it is. So I want to make sure I understand the space. And are we anticipating, is there, again, I haven't done an inventory, that these would be outside of our existing parks?
It could be either. I mean, if there's space within a park and already water hookups, you can do that there. A secondary garden, if this is wildly popular, could be built in a park.
Okay,
It doesn't have to
'cause
be
I wouldn't
exclusive.
want that be our first go-to,
Sure.
because we've done so much, and they're generally very, very popular, and those serve a purpose that people can't have trouble getting elsewhere, organized sports and things like that. So I would hope that we could maybe find it, although, maybe we can find an acre, but I would hope that there's options beyond that, just because those have a dedicated purpose, and we're pumping a lot of money into them to refurbish them and get them going. I'm not saying that's a rule or anything. This is a brand new discussion, but I'm hoping that we could leave them for what they are, but we'd have to do an inventory and see what's out there. What typically is the breakdown between resident and non-resident usage, or is it all over the place?
I could contact Mechanicsburg, but my impression is it's about half and half. Now, Mechanicsburg's a lot smaller, so that makes a difference too. Susquehanna doesn't have their own community garden, so some of their residents might try to come over. Hershey has their own. Camp Hill has their own as well. The borough
Is there
of Camp
any,
Hill.
are you allowed to put a cap on it? I mean, what if it was just overrun by non-residents? That would be a hard program to get behind.
I think you'd have to offer it to your residents first. And then if there would be any left over, then you could go. I know with Susquehanna, because Elmerton Avenue, excuse me, that's state land, and then the county leases where the community gardens up on, which is in Susquehanna Township up there. They have 368 plots up there, so I'm not too I don't know how big. What do you think that is?
Times 900. Take that number times 900 square feet, and that's the
Well,
square footage.
their plots are 30 by 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I know for Mechanicsburg, the waiting list is about 3 years, because it's one plot per household, and it's about 3 years because they let in non-residents. So you're probably right. You'd want to do residents first.
Right.
If there's plots left over, you could open it up and maybe charge a little bit more for non-residents.
Because you're saying, Evelyn, how many people were interested on when you guys put it out there?
Like 100 right off the bat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Two, Andrew, where the 5 that you're involved in, do they have like a committee that has like a board that takes care of everything, oversees everything, has somebody that's in charge?
Well, I mean, I've only ran the Camp Hill one, or I should say
Okay.
the Ames one in Camp Hill, and that's closed now, sadly. But Mechanicsburg, it's just the Parks Department. Their
Okay.
community gardens are located at the Soldiers, Sailors Memorial Park. It's kind of tucked to the side, but so their Public Works, I guess, handles it all. I organized a tool donation when Camp Hill closed for Mechanicsburg, and their Public Works stores everything, handled everything. For the Ames Garden, it was just a corporation. I just was sort of handed over or asked to help run it, and so I just did assigned the plots, ultimately coordinated the volunteers. As far as oversight, I would contact the plant manager if something was like a hose was broken, the water wasn't working, we needed something delivered, or something like the fence was ripped. And then I also have plots at Dauphin County too. I don't know how much you know about that. I can only guess a little bit. I know, the state owns that, they lease it out. The county Parks Department sort of manages that. I think they're the ones who grid the plots, measure them, issue them, take the money, issue the seeds, and set some of the rules. But beyond that, I think that's just county employees who handle the day-to-day management.
Okay.
They don't do volunteers, I don't think.
Yeah. Brad, is Alexis on that call?
I was not able to reach her, ma'am.
Oh, okay, because she was going to be on. Can you bring up the
did.
photos?
I mean, do you know, how do they do it I mean, I would think that you would just, the same that we have like the Greenway Committee or something like
Right.
that you
And-
have a committee within the parks.
Yes.
He can run, they can run.
Well, Brad and I were on this
Yeah.
Zoom call yesterday. So right here, these are from Millersburg. Alexis Camprese, she sent us about 18 of them just to kind of show us what they do with their community gardens
Where's this at?
in Millersburg in the borough.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been to that one recently. That one's a little bit more involved than we would even necessarily need, because
Right.
they've already constructed the beds. They've got a shed there with a fridge.
Yeah.
I
And the
was
cinder blocks, which,
That's actually not the best way to do it because you have to reach over them more. But
okay.
But
Have you had any issues with vandalism?
some theft, a little bit of theft, but that's mostly because at the Camp Hill Gardens we had some theft. People would just come with shopping bags and help themselves.
Yeah.
But they didn't know better. Once they were told, hey, this isn't, we put signs up, they then, oh, okay, they stopped stealing. I think some of them just genuinely thought that it's
You could just go and pick.
browse. Yeah.
Alexis was telling me she has a garden here at Millersburg, and somebody stole her watermelon, and it got around town, and they brought the watermelon back.
Nice community.
Yeah.
So the one at Dauphin County, is that over by the police, the state
Yeah,
police?
right across the
Okay,
street.
right across
Yeah,
the street.
yeah.
And that's just level, you know, and they just have it's not even really a fence, right?
It's not
like
fenced at all. It's just a farm, basically.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of wildlife pressure there.
Yeah.
And there is some theft at that one too. The high value items tend to get stolen, so like watermelons, cantaloupes,
Refrigerators?
anything that's you're not going to steal squash or beans or something that's
Right.
harder, but if it's something that's just right there, sometimes people
I know
just
it
grab
was suggested yesterday that it should be fenced in because of the animals. And then the one, I'm not too sure which one it was, but they had like a lock with a code. So the people that had their plots in there were given that code that they could come and go.
Millersburg has a code, and Mechanicsburg does as well. At Camp Hill, we were sort of spoiled. They had security that would just open the gate for us day and night. The way that works at Mechanicsburg is there's just a large fence with a code, and then gardeners will have their own individual plots fenced as well to keep out burrowing critters and whatever else.
Okay. All righty.
Well, I'm just if we're wrapping up, this is very exciting, and we have a kind of a dual role, which is to help enable community initiatives and certainly not get in the way of things that, particularly volunteers and anything that would be primarily community-driven and volunteer-driven. I know the township in some way would have to play a role. And then we also have to think of the township and the taxpayers and the parks. We don't have any of our parks people here, Parks and Rec, so they have, we've put a lot on their plate with all of our parks projects. So obviously, as we go down the road, we would want to see what capacity they have. And I know as you kind of laid it out, you said like a kind of a sliding scale of township involvement. It sounds like a minimum you would be access to water, and that sounds very sensible. So we would want to see, where could it be? How much township commitment would it be? And then go from there. And that's kind of ICR role, is we kind of have to straddle those two jobs of enabling what the community shows an interest in, and then just looking out for the taxpayers and make sure we don't burn out our employees as well. So I think this is absolutely worth exploring.
Yeah, and I agree with Norm. Like I said, we do have the Historical Commission, we have, the Greenway Committee, the Shade Tree Commission, and I think this could be a committee,
But
here. Yeah.
do these normally have their own volunteer board?
Well, I'd have to ask for Mechanicsburg, but I think there's no volunteers. I think it's just the Parks Department handles it. I think there's 2 or 3 employees who, on a part-time basis, deal with it there. I think Dauphin County, it's also the Parks. I don't think there's any volunteers there as well. I don't know what Hershey is or Millersburg. I in fact know a gardener at Millersburg, but sometimes, like I said, for Camp Hill, there was a mixture of volunteers too.
So is there a scenario in which our parks people would be having to police it and having to collect the money and enforce the contract? You say that would be their responsibility?
At Mechanicsburg it is, but for Lower Paxton it doesn't have to be that way. If we wanted to do a trial program, no water, just a plot and a fence, we could have volunteers and maybe not charge for the first year just to see if it's popular or not. And then as it gets more developed, you could start to charge a fee for it.
Yeah.
It could be very, very minimal investment to begin with, and you wouldn't have to worry about collecting money and even, collecting dues and anything like
we'll
that. If you
see.
didn't
And I don't want
want
to make it so bare bones that
Sure, of
we
course.
turn people away from it or anything like that. Just things to talk about.
Yeah, because the 4 ladies yesterday, they definitely recommended that we have a water source.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, they definitely recommended that there be would be a water source.
What is this? Who are these?
Yesterday, Brad and I were on a call with a lady from Dauphin County, a lady from Penn State, where the grants would come from, plus they have the garden at Penn State, Alexis from Millersburg, and then Bonnie Kent from Dauphin County also. She's in the upper part of the county, yeah. I was given their names by somebody at the county, and since this is new, we have no idea, so we got on with them and that's where a lot of my questions were coming from, so.
Okay.
We got on with them, so. Could you please give all of email and a cell phone number, please, to Shelley? So we have all of your information, and it sounds like this could be a go, but it's going to take some planning. Yeah, so, okay, and thank you so much for presenting tonight. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, we weren't prepared.
Hey, you did fine. You answered questions, and you gave us ideas, yeah.
Thank you.
Excuse me, one question. Do you have any ideas about water source for the gardens?
Well, that's where it makes it easier if it's at a park to begin with.
Right.
But I guess we'd have to look around. That's why I said to start out with we could not have a water source. Dauphin County effectively doesn't have a water source. They have a hand pump that's it's faster, just bring your own water. And that could be the start if need be. But otherwise, I guess we'd have to talk to, I don't know what the zoning, like you said, and where there's access to water that's not already a park.
Yeah, we would just have to make sure that whatever land that we choose would have to be approved for a water source to be put in.
I'm not sure what the hookup, we talked about
Yeah,
Blue Ridge.
it would be in the ground.
Yeah, I'm not sure where Blue Ridge, the
Somewhere.
pipelines are. I don't know if they have ready access yet or anything like that. So that's why I was saying it might have to be non-water to begin. But I'm not sure. I don't know as well about where the park water supplies are.
And I feel
Right.
like Blue Ridge would, because of all of the development in that area that they just worked on. There's apartments, there's shopping centers, there must be some sort of water there. But I don't want to settle on that spot if it's not.
Right, yeah, and that's what we'll have to look at with Amanda, with the zoning and everything to see, so. Okay, so at the end of the meeting, if you could just see that Ms. Smith gets all of your information, we would appreciate it.
Yep, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, does anybody, public comment on the gardens?
When we were meeting with the Parks and Rec Board about different options that would be for that Blue Ridge area, we were trying to think of things that were low cost, great for the community, could bring positive initiatives to the area. This is one that we talked about and something people were very supportive of, and they have a water source because of being a former golf course. There's actually a structure that sits, a couple hundred feet behind my house that did have a water hookup to it. So it could be a great opportunity there.
Okay, great.
And that's probably well water, which is good, because then it's not running off of city water. Don't really
Right.
have to pay for anything.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that I
So-
don't know. That'd be interesting. Well, Ms. Rodas, do you have Viola water over there? Or do you guys have wells?
We do have Viola water, but from what I understand, the golf course did not.
Okay,
So I think that was a structural decision when they were building.
okay, great,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Okay, would anybody else like to speak on the gardens? Okay, any other announcements? Board? Mr. Gutschall? Okay. We adjourn the meeting, and we'll see you next week here at 7 o'clock for a business meeting. And thank you all for coming.